welcome to another Conversations on Awaz-e-Haqiqat, which translates to the words of truth. I'm your host, Chris Malika Bhadra, and depending on whichever part of the world you're going to listen to me from, I am joined by a very special guest, and the discussion that I'm going to be having with her is also very different and special, and something that's very close to my heart because I'm a dancer myself, and she's an esteemed and a very celebrated dancer, and we will talk more about her journey and her project. So I have with me Manjari Chaturvedi, who's a classical dancer, the creator of Sufi Kathak, and the restorer of the dance of Tawaifs. She's been a director, choreographer, TEDx speaker, and a cultural academy with over 500 concerts in 20 years, with 24 productions through 36 countries, and with 406 musicians, to be honest. She's a leading exponent of classical dance in India. She's an unusual dancer. She has blazed her own path that no one had traversed earlier in the field of performing arts. Manjari has also taken the traditional form of Kathak to a different level altogether and has created her own style, brand, and niche of dance. With over 500 concerts in 25 years in more than 36 countries, her work is vast, and she has performed at Europe, the Middle East, and Central Asia, along with Australia and America as well. The project founded by Manjari Chaturvedi is known as the Courtesan Project, which started in 2009 and is running at present so far. So this is technically the 15th year of the project, which also kind of looks into gender discrimination in performing arts and how that shapes the art for future via the Tawaif and the Baiji women of performers of the 18th to the 20th century. Under the Courtesan Project, she has held hundreds of concerts and performances on stories of the Tawaifs and held talks at many prestigious platforms, including 3 TED Talks and 4 full-day seminars as an academic initiative to create awareness, preservation, and promoting the intangible cultural heritage of the erstwhile Tawaifs and the importance and role of women performers in shaping of the process of preservation and promotion of the cultural heritage. On that note, Manjari, a very good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, and I'm happy to be joining here and to talk about something which is very close to my heart, which is about the women performers.
The pleasure is all mine, Manjari. Thank you for joining. All right. The first things first, Manjari, can you probably elaborate a bit more on the project and how does it kind of aim to reshape the earlier narrative, elevating the journey of these women from merely being seen as dancers to being recognized as classical performers and artists?
When I talk about the Courtesan Project, this actually would be we'll have to just delve a little deeper into history and to see how the women performers were vis-a-vis about, say, from 16th century till about now.
Yeah.
And the courtesans actually that we say, which the Hindi word for that becomes the Tawaifs and the Baijis. And this was largely in the northern India. And I'm not addressing the southern part of India. This is largely a tradition which was in the northern part of India. And the Baijis and the Tawaifs, as they were called, they were women performers. They were dancers, singers, and they performed, in music, they performed Thumri, Dadra, Ghazal, Khayal Gaiki. And in dance, they largely performed Kathak. So that's the historical tradition which was there, which existed, in India. Now, where did these performers perform? That comes a question that, these women performers usually performed at the royal courts of the erstwhile Maharajas and the Nawabs and the rulers of the princely states. And they also performed at their own performance spaces, which were known as kothas. Those were the performance spaces. So that comes to, to the point that obviously if somebody is a performer, they need a performance space.
Yeah.
So say about pre-independence, these were the only performance spaces because India had these multiple princely estates which were there, and each Nawab, each Maharaja had his darbar, and there were subsequent, royal princely families also, which also had their own performance spaces. So historically, the wives and the courtesans, as we say in English, have existed in the Indian scenario. It is nothing new which is there. It was there for a long time. And even if we predate, like if we say that the Tawaifs and the Baijis we are talking about are only from 16th century onwards, then before that, did anything exist? So there is also, we see if we talk about at the time of Buddha, Lord Buddha, there was the famous story of a courtesan called Amrapali,
Yes.
and it's a very documented story. So which tells us that even during that period, there was the presence of courtesans which were there. Now, if we predate that and go further back, then as children, we've heard many mythological stories of Raja Indra, who had apsaras in his
Yes.
court, who was singing and dancing and playing musical instruments. Okay, so we even go back to that. Even in these mythological stories of different gods, even those kingdoms had the courtesans who were singers and dancers.
Right.
This is the background that women performers have existed in India. And if you see the sculptures that are there on the temples, most of them are dancing figures
Right.
with instruments in their hand or dance postures. So we do not say that this is very new. This has been since time immemorial. India has had dance music
Right.
as part of its cultural milieu.
True.
Now, coming to this particular project. This project started, as you rightfully said in the introduction, we are in the 15th year of this project. Now, this project started because I met a Tawaif. Technically, she was called a Mehfil singer because post-independence, there were no Tawaifs left as such.
Right.
The Tawaifs had all restructured or reshaped themselves to be called as Mehfil singers, or just they had put the name Begum or Devi along with their names to be accepted in the society. We'll come to that later.
Sure.
But as of now, if I say that these women performers, pre-independence, they had a different lifestyle. Post-independence, they had a different lifestyle. Now, even pre-independence, I would also mark another date, which was 1857.
Right.
Post 1857, which was a very, which is a date that marked India into a different history, was also around that time that there was a change in the patronage of the performers. So
Okay.
there have been changes which have historically taken place vis-a-vis the wives and the Baijis. So coming back to it, that I met this woman who was from the tradition of a Mehfil singer. She sang exactly like Begum Akhtar. In fact, she said that she used to learn from Begum Akhtar, but because of her caste, she was not allowed to enter the room. So she would learn listening to her from the door outside.
Right.
Okay. So, but the fact was that she sang exactly like Begum Akhtar. I met her, and I come from it's important that I share with you my background too. Come from a privileged family, if I may say that. I come from a well-educated family which is into academics, uh, and I can converse in English. I can speak. I am articulate. So I took upon dance, and I was performing for a long time, and I created an art form called Sufi Kathak, which I created way back in 1998. And subsequently, I traveled many countries and performed many concerts on Sufi Kathak, which was the work that I was known for, which was dance to spiritual music. And then I met this lady, and we did a concert together. Now, I had already performed at some places, so my name was already known to people. But even Zarina Begum was known. But when we performed the concert together, there was a certain way in which people treated me, and a certain derogatory manner in which people
Right.
treated Zarina.
Mm.
I was, surprised to see that, because in my point of views, she was a far more experienced performer than I was. I
Mm.
was junior to her. And so much respect should have been given to her rather than to me.
Right.
But it was the other way around. In fact, there was also a fact that, we were at a concert where she was to perform before me and I was to perform after her. And this was way back in 1999, I think,
Mm.
1999. And I suggested to the organizers, I said that, she's performing before me and then I'm performing. It would be nice if we overlap one piece and I perform with her. And she walked up to me with folded hands and she said, I will say that in Hindi, because she said कि आप हमारे गाने पर नृत्य करेंगी, आप हमारे गाने को इतनी इज्जत देंगी.
Mm.
Now I was shocked that, why is she saying that? I said,
Right.
Sarina ji, मेरे को इज्जत मिलेगी, ये आप क्या चीज कह रहे हैं? मेरे लिए इज्जत की बात है कि मैं आपके गाने पर नृत्य
Right.
करूंगी, आप मुझसे बहुत सीनियर हैं. But, I frankly did not realize that there is, because, when you come from a privileged background, there are a lot of things you don't see.
Right.
And because you don't see, you don't know them.
Mm. Mm.
So now when I look back at this incident, I record it in a different manner. At that
Mm.
point in time, I had overlooked it. And
Mm.
I was just happy to perform with her. I performed with her. It was covered in all newspapers and everything. And, she was very happy. I was very happy. And I subsequently, got busy with my concerts and started traveling, and I lost touch with her.
Mm.
I reconnected with her after a couple of years, and I met her because that was through my foundation where I
Right.
support artists for pension and medical support. So I connected with her because she needed some pension support.
Mm.
And when I met her, and I listened to her music. I got her to Delhi in 2009, and I did a concert with her. And I, wanted to work on her music because I felt that she had great music, and these compositions will die off if I don't work on them. So it started with that. It did not start with the stigma for the Tawaifs.
Right.
Started with my thinking that I should save these compositions
Mm.
so that we don't lose them in history, because these are oral traditions.
Mm.
And the first concert I actually did to save those compositions and not the Tawaifs, I would
Right.
say. And when I started working on it and I started finding the compositions and everything and started reading up, that's when I realized that, oh God, there is a complete narrative that these women have been kept away from history,
Right.
and they have not been allowed to be in history. So it's not about my saving these compositions, it's about also finding about these women.
Mm. Mm.
And again, because I did that concert in Delhi, and I was already a known name by then. We had a house full show. We were covered by media very well. Zarina also got a space.
Right.
Then that got me into, working towards what the Tawaif sang and what their Courtesan Project, took shape. And and I met her, I interviewed her for her music. Then I realized that, this is somewhere where the women were not given the same due as men.
Mm. Yeah.
So in history, we remember the male performers
Yes.
as ustads and pandits,
Mm.
and the female performers, historically, we remember them as nachne gaane wali.
Mm. Mm.
And this is what I found in those years. And then I started, reading up, finding out. And I was so surprised because most of this was not even recorded. So we did not have well documented history of
Yeah. Right.
the Tawaifs and the Baijis. There wasn't
Mm.
much available for one to read and research from. And the other problem also that came up, which was huge initially, was that even the families of the Tawaifs and Baijis did not want to speak about their mothers and grandmothers. Be- and because, we as a society had stigmatized them. So
Yes.
they want themselves to be associated with anything to do with this because now they were so-called living respectable lives. Now, my fight started that why are we saying that they are living respectable lives and that Tawaifs and Baijis did not live respectable lives? My question started from there.
Right.
And that's how the Courtesan Project started. Yes, documenting the Tawaifs and Baijis and saving their songs and their dances, but also giving them their respectful place in the society. That was became the main focus of this project.
Thank you, Manjari. Thank you. That was very well explained. I think a lot of us will have more insight into the project. And that's how when I read a few lines about on your project on social media, I got very interested because I'm a performing artist. I'm just not into Kathak, but I've learned contemporary dance. But it was very interesting to see because as you mentioned, and that's where my next question comes from, that how have you researched, or Manjari, in your words, how do you think we as a society have failed in changing the narrative or not putting the right light on the narrative of these women's lives? What went wrong?
So I will answer this question in a two-pronged approach, if I may say. One is that we are a patriarchal society.
Yeah.
So what happens is that everything that we have is from the eyes of the men.
Yeah.
So now there is I consider history which has been given to us as an error, if I may say, because it only records 50% of the history through the eyes of men. Where are the histories of women? There is no history from the woman's perspective. Even the women histories have been written by men.
Yes.
So unfortunately, even a woman's history is through the perspective of a man. We do not have the narrative of women as written by men, as written by women. Now, if I explain to you more clearly that why this is so damaging is that I'm a performer. Now, if I'm performing on stage and if there are, 500 men sitting there, and those 500 men are recording history, out of those 500 men, most of them would only say, oh, how beautiful she looks. Look at her hands, look at her eyes, the way she moves. Oh my God, that's gorgeous, or, that's seductive, or this. Unfortunately, that is all that will get recorded. As a dancer, I know, and anybody who is learning music or dance professionally would know how many hours you have to put in practice and how many years to be able to do that. Now, if I don't record my own history, the people would not know that I used to practice 7 hours every day, for 10 years. It was only then that I was able to perform a ghazal right. It was only then that I could get my teen tal or the jhaptal right. It took me 3 years to get my jhaptal right. It took me 5 years to get my rag lalit right. These are the art language.
Yes.
But these art languages were not recorded, not documented. So we don't know how, I can only imagine as an artist that how hard these women worked. But there's not been documented how hard they worked. It's only how they looked, what or how they looked, and how many affairs they had. Now these are how they looked, or how many affairs they had. They could be subject of gossip in the society, but they cannot be a reflection of the art of a person.
Right.
The reflection of art will only be art. So now this was, and also now coming, like I said, it will be a two-pronged thing. One was the reigning patriarchy, which stopped us from even thinking about it. And I will say that even today, I'll take names just for the sake of taking names. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone here. That, supposing if there is a performance even today by, Pandit Jasraj. So you would say Pandit Jasraj is coming.
Mm.
Or if there is a performance by Ustad Amjad Ali Khan, you will say Ustad Amjad Ali Khan is coming.
Mm.
But if there is a performance by Shubha Mudgal, you would say Shubha Mudgal is coming.
Right.
You would say Kishori Amonkar is performing.
Mm.
At the best, you will put a title, Srimati Shubha Mudgal is performing.
Yeah.
My contention is that her marital status has nothing to do with her art.
Right.
You're putting Srimati is of no relevance. She has also spent 50 years of her life working towards art. She should also have a title which should be equivalent and exactly the same as Pandit or Ustad.
Mm.
But this even exists today. So what we are saying about the women performers earlier, we are still looking at that in this manner. Until I don't point this out to people, they actually don't even realize.
Right.
It's when I point out, they say, oh my God, yes, we actually don't put a title before the women performers.
Mm.
Historically, we've not done that.
Right.
Now, when we talk about the Courtesan Project working towards it, that the change, I have already seen the change. It's taken 15 years. See, this is not just about, like I said, recording and documenting songs and dance. It is about bringing a change in narrative.
Yes.
So I was prepared that it will take a long time.
Mm.
And I was only hopeful that it should happen in my lifetime. So that was the only thing that I started with. I had nothing else. And when I started it, there were people against me. I shouldn't say use the word against. The people laughed at me. They sniggered at me. You know, it was said that, oh, Manjari Chaturvedi ko bula lo, aajkal tawaif hai, mujra karti hai. Now, this was not said in a nice manner.
Yes.
This was said that, you know, oh, look, she is a classical dancer, and these days she is doing mujra. Understand? So it was said in a derogatory manner.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm very stubborn, and I have complete conviction in things that I do. And even when I did Sufi Kathak, I was questioned, I was laughed at, I was written off. People said she does item numbers. How can Sufism be part of Kathak? You know, historically, it has never happened. So I had actually already lived 10, 12 years of that. So I did not care about what people said, but I'm sharing with you that even in today's time, when I was doing this 10 years, 15 years back, these were things which were being said in our own society.
Right.
This modern Insta, Facebook, social media society.
Yeah.
We were still saying these things for a woman performer who's talking about other women performers.
Yes.
And giving respect to them. So I was being also subjected to this. But thankfully, I would say that thankfully, those voices were lesser than the voices who got up in support for me.
Right.
So there were, people who said, oh, but what she's saying is right. What she says makes sense. And that led on to, me doing the first seminar in 2014, where Zarina was alive then and she was part of it. And we just talked about this. So we realized that, if we talk about it, people understand. The younger generation understands. So Courtesan Project then became this, became a revolutionary idea in the field of performance art. Because it was talking about things which were not to be talked about, which were for decades brushed under the carpet.
Yes.
We were talking about the names of women who were removed deliberately from history. I, as a Kathak dancer, had read the history of Kathak, but pre-independence, there is no presence of any woman performer's name.
Right.
So did it mean that, pre-independence, there was no woman who was dancing Kathak? So how did Kathak stay alive?
Yeah.
So those, but like I said, I did not think of those questions 20 years back when I was learning Kathak. Because it didn't even strike us. And so many students learning Kathak, this would not even strike to them. Till I point out and they go back to their books and they say, yes, ma'am, there is no woman mentioned.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you, Manjari. But very interesting point that you've made, that even when we are living in the 21st century, where we have Instagram, Snapchat, and you name the social media handles, right? there's still that narrative that hasn't changed. A little bit of patriarchy is around us, women are snubbed at, looked at. But my next question stems from that area is, when you talk about social media, do you think that the way social media sometimes still portrays these women as just mujrawalis, or we see these special songs in the movies where these ladies are just doing a dance performance, which is in the brothel or those dance floors. Do you think that that depiction also has affected the narrative?
Yes, definitely that has affected the narrative. In fact, I say it categorically that in the case of the Tawaifs and Baijis, the narrative of the cinema has been the only narrative for people to follow.
Yes.
So what has happened is that Bollywood has become their history chapter. Whereas Bollywood is, the work of Bollywood is not to teach you history. The work of Bollywood is to titillate you, to entertain. And that's it.
Yes.
You know, so they will use everything that is available to them, which is music, dance, women, to provide that entertainment to the masses.
Right.
They are not teaching you history. Unfortunately, what happened was that because there was nothing else about the Tawaifs available, whatever Bollywood showed became the history. And people started believing that.
Right.
For example, the Tawaifs actually used to wear a Banarsi sari, cover their heads and sit and sing. All the archival photographs of the Tawaifs that I've seen, they wore long shararas, peshwas, their head covered.
Yeah.
Only their, the hands and feet and face visible. No other part of the body is visible. Now, suddenly, where does this whole thing about the outfit of a Tawaif comes in, which is a body-hugging outfit, so that your breasts are visible and, your hips are visible.
Yeah.
And you have a definite cleavage showing slit in the chest. Now, where on earth has this come as the outfit of the Tawaif?
Right.
But generations of people associate the costume of Tawaif as that, because they haven't seen the historical records. We do have paintings of Tawaifs, we do have later age photographs of Tawaifs, and this outfit is never shown in those.
Right.
So now what happens is there's a visual that has been created. Now, the other thing what Bollywood did was that, there were songs.
Yes.
See, Tawaif songs were the most popular songs because before Bollywood or before Hindi cinema, the only medium of entertainment was a live performance by performers.
Right.
So everyone was performing live. There was no other option. There was no recordings. So those songs, those popular songs, were again taken into Hindi cinema and used as part of cinema to entertain people.
Right.
What happened in that process was that the woman who used to be sitting and singing a particular song, uh, 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 the same song, and I can give examples that something like Baju Band Khul Khul Jaye is a song which most Tawaifs and most Ustads sang. Badi Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab sang. So everyone sang that song.
Right.
But when it came in cinema, it came with a short blouse, a midriff showing outfit, with a woman, with two women actually dancing in that, and hip shaking movements, chest heaving movements. So what happened that a simple composition, which was a classical compositions, which pan North India, every ustad and every Tawaif and Baiji sang, suddenly became a titillating song. Because the visual reach of Bollywood is, more.
Yes.
Even like a very recent series that has also depicted the wives in that has made such a huge error on women histories. If you see that what they have shown, small things, that they've shown that if a Tawaif is interested in poetry and if is reading and writing poetry, her books are burnt. And this is so wrong because the Tawaifs were actually the only well-read women.
Right.
The of the royal families or of regular families did not read or write. It was only the Tawaifs who wrote. And in fact, Malka Jan wrote her divan. Chanda Bibi, Malaka Bai Chanda wrote her divan. There were Tawaifs which were writing freedom songs.
Right.
So they were into reading and writing poetry,
Mm.
the learned people. But what Bollywood has shown you is that, oh, they were not women who would, read
Oh,
or
mind.
write.
Mm.
And in fact, if you see the current series, they've not even shown, the women practicing dance or music. Now, any, classical music singer or dancer would know that you have to put in 10 years. You
Yes.
can't dance without that. You can't
Mm.
perform live if you don't do that. Now, while their artists can do 100 takes for one song, but the actual Tawaifs
Yeah.
and Baijis had to perform every
One
day
go. Yeah. Yeah.
in one go. So they practiced really hard, but we did not see anything of those kind. We did not see them discussing rag. We did not see them, practicing a rag to be able. So
Right.
you took away the most important part, that a series which is made on the greatest music legends. The Tawafs are the greatest music
Yeah.
legends.
Mm.
Doesn't even have a music director.
Mm.
you know so there is no rag followed, there is nothing. When you're depicting these things, you have to be careful about women
True.
histories. No? You can't just play with things around.
Yes.
But unfortunately, that has always been done in Bollywood,
Mm.
barring a few films where they actually try to bring in the depth of the emotions of the
Right.
woman you
Mm.
know
Right. Manjari, just one quick question. I'm also mindful of time. I have just two or three more questions before we wrap up. Um, I agree that this has been shown in a way, and Bollywood is being sold to the masses. We throng the cinema halls and we watch it. But if I have to play the devil's advocate, most of us are from the educated class. Most of us are performing in one way or the other. Why are we still watching things that where we see that, oh, this is not the way a woman should be represented at all? This is not the way a woman should be called at if she's a performer. Why are we still going to the movie halls and watching them?
Okay. So, what happens is that we still live in a patriarchal society.
Mm.
If you move 5 kilometers from the metro city, and you would find that the same mindset exists.
Mm.
The change has not happened that
Right.
much.
Mm.
Uh, Also, there is while creating this narrative about, women empowerment, there was also one thing that was, you know, without our knowing, and I'm talking about all us women,
Yeah.
without our knowing, was planted in us that if you want to look like a serious thinking woman,
Mm.
you have to dress down. Okay.
Okay. Mm.
You have to wear simpler clothes,
Yeah.
simpler shoes, put
Mm.
on no makeup, you know, and that's when you'll be taken seriously that
Right.
you are a woman who has content.
Mm.
If you dress up, you put on makeup, you look like a Christmas tree, then you're a woman with no content. Okay. Now
Mm.
this has been built inside you and me, and
Mm.
I'm accepting it for myself also. Even I would used to think that till I forced myself to not think like that.
Right.
A woman has a choice to dress up the way she wants, and yet have the content that she has.
Yes.
Why do we need to subject women to this, whereas we are not subjecting men towards
Mm.
this?
Mm.
Yeah. So that is why it is still continuing. It will not go away in a day or two. We are still watching those films for the sake of entertainment.
Mm.
We like to say that people want only trash for entertainment. We underestimate our audiences a lot.
Right.
And out of that fear that people only want trash to watch, we keep serving them trash day in and day out. I'll give you an example that I recently did a concert on classical music in Delhi.
Yeah.
Which was a series that I'm currently working on the Royal Gharana series. So the royal music that was performed in the royal courts
Right.
and the traditions that were continued with that. I went for sponsorship and I was told that, Manjari ji, people don't like to listen to classical music nowadays. We won't be able to, we'll do it some other time. Let's just not do this concert because the sponsors felt that people will not come for classical concert.
Mm, mm.
We were a ticketed show. 2 days before the show, we were sold out.
Okay.
Now, do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
That we are giving people classical music. They're buying tickets and making the show houseful.
Mm.
But the sponsor comes on board and says, oh, people will not watch this.
Yes.
They would
Yes.
like to watch Bollywood. So we will not sponsor this. So when I'm just giving you the example for the statement that I made, that we underestimate our audiences and we continue to give them trash, which Hindi cinema unfortunately keeps giving them in the name of entertainment.
Sure.
They do not understand that people at times would enjoy if you give them intelligent entertainment
Absolutely.
as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, Manjari. You mentioned a point about patriarchy and social change, right? And I also feel that as performers, we can use our platform for talking about social change and awareness. In your journey, Manjari, and in your expertise, how do you think dance can be used as a social platform to bring about that social change and justice?
I have used my dance throughout to bring about social change and to talk about a different narrative.
Mm.
And I have seen that it works.
Mm.
And I'll share with you why. If I give a lecture on, I'll speak with the Courtesan Project
Sure.
first. If I give a lecture on the Tawaifs and courtesans, there'll probably be only about 100 people present.
Right.
Yeah, they will say, oh, bore ho jayenge, we'll get bored, Okay, so they may not attend. But if I'm doing a concert which says the romance of Mirza Ghalib and Nawab Jan, I'll have 1,000 people buying tickets and coming and watching the show. Now, I realize that that is the platform through which I have to speak about the women performers.
Mm-hmm.
So now my shows, while they have the song and the dances, they also have 3 or 4 minutes of stories in between of the women performers.
Mm.
I changed the format of my concert. In classical concerts, we do not break the rhythm and tell a story.
Mm.
But 15 years back, with the Courtesan Project, I changed the format of concert. I would have a storyteller along with my dance.
Right.
Now, what would happen? I would dance a piece or a ghazal or something, and I would exit, and the storyteller would come for 3 minutes and tell the story about a woman performer.
Right.
Exit, and then I would do another dance. I changed this format because I realized that I want people, these 600,000, 1,200, 2,000 people who are coming for a concert, to also be educated while they go back.
Mm-hmm.
And it works because people, like I'm known for it. People call me that, I give intelligent entertainment because I also give them something to take back,
Right.
even while they're being entertained. So, this became that, my art became the vehicle through which I reached out maximum. And there were times when, I initially, actually, if I may say, that because people didn't know the Courtesan Project and they knew about my Sufi Kathak work, and they would contact me for a Sufi Kathak concert, and I would say, oh, I want to do this Courtesan Project, and I will perform Aaj Jaane Ki Zid Na Karo, and that is everyone's favorite. And they would say, oh, Manjari ji, that would be very nice. And if I may say that at the peak of my career, I was trying to sell another concept to people because
Right.
they didn't know and they didn't want a mujra.
Mm.
They wanted a classical concert. So, it was a redefining that I was learning through my art to do.
Right.
Then also, when somebody has seen a very beautiful performance, and then if the performer comes and says even 15 minutes of something, people are very receptive. They listen because they've seen something just now which has touched their heart and they listen. So, art, in fact, I would say that my art actually became the best medium for me to talk to people. and talk to people in a large, varied format. Also, people who would come for for these concerts will actually never come for a seminar or a talk. I was, reaching out, and in fact, I'll share with you that it's not just classical concerts. I've actually done fashion shows. So I was a showstopper at Tarun Tahiliani's fashion show, and I told him that yes, I will be there, but we will dedicate the concert, the fashion show to the courtesans. So
Right.
we called the fashion show the last dance of the courtesan. Now, I knew that the audience that will come for a fashion show will probably not come for my classical concert. So I made an outreach there
Right.
for them to know that why I'm doing the dance of the Tawaif. So dance, actually, I realized that 15 years back, if you would have said, I would have said that, I'm not too sure. But now I'm very sure, because now, if I may say, that over the years, I have now Kathak dancers, the younger ones, and even senior to me, copying this and coming dressed as the wives and dancing in their concerts. I see that, there are people, there's singers who are now finding stories of some Baijis or Tawaifs to speak in between in their concerts.
Right.
And the same artists about 10, 15 years back, 10 years back, I would say, because initially everyone was skeptical, but now they think it sells, so they're using it. That 10 years back, nobody would even, they would take their Ustad's name, but they would not dare take any Tawaif's name
Right.
during their concert,
Mm.
because they didn't want to be associated with anything to do with the Tawaifs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that change I have seen in these 10 years only, in decade. So I am very hopeful that, when I started and I was thinking that, mere lifetime mein to ho jaye, I am now very hopeful that this will happen in my lifetime. And not when I'm, holding a walking stick and walking, but I hope even before that.
Absolutely. Amen and inshallah to that, Manjari. I'm very mindful of the time. One last question, Manjari, is where can the listeners find the Courtesan Project on social media?
So the listeners can find the Courtesan Project on Insta with the same name, the Courtesan Project. They can find it on YouTube on the channel, which is Manjari Chaturvedi channel. They can find it on Facebook as both Manjari Chaturvedi and Courtesan Project. And they can also go on my website, which is manjarichaturvedi.com. And they would find details about that and upcoming performances. So they can find that there, and then they can type and find it anywhere. I don't know, there so many places. They can listen to your podcast and find this.
Amazing.
About.
Yeah. All right. On that note, thank you so much, Manjari. That was an amazing, amazing conversation to have. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom, your journey, and that amazing project that you've taken to kind of revive the history in the right sense for women. On that note, to my listeners, if you've heard us for the first time, I really hope you have a lot to take away from Manjari's journey about her project, where she rightfully is working for the rights of the women who we have heard but were never documented in the right way. You call it patriarchy, you call it, I don't know what you call it, but we want to revive the women who were not marked rightfully in the history. And if you've heard us for a while, I hope that you like the content that I put on the table. If you've got any thoughts or feedback, please write to me at awaz-e-haqiqat@gmail.com, or you can also find me on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. I would love to read back your thoughts and comments on that. On that note, Manjari, thank you so much for being with me. It was a pleasure to be hosting you on the podcast. Thank you so much.